These are Krumkaka, so they're
Okay.
light and lacy. Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. We got everybody hooked up. Welcome, everybody, to the December meeting, in person and online. Have people had a chance to look at the two sets of meeting minutes? We have the board work session minutes from November 9th. Were there any additions or corrections? Entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the November 9th board work session notes. Second.
Okay, right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. And then our regular session. Any additions or corrections? Okay. To make a motion?
I'll move to approve the November 9th, 2023, board meeting minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. It's approved. Okay. We have our public comment section of the meeting. We don't have any members of the public present. Are there any people that would like to comment? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to bond updates. Greg's report, one of the anchor of our meeting.
Hi, buddy. So, last month, little lot with our schedule update, a lot of pricing activity, our branches. We kind of running down through that with our schedule, we moved through and we've updated our master development schedule. And it affected most of projects to some degree. And that was really to look at, especially on the branch, Sisters, LaPone, Sun River, how they were really sequencing in what we were doing to shut down or close the existing branches, specific Sisters and LaPone, as well as Red. And then open up our temporary facilities in Memphis. We also looked at, oh, we're gonna reopen cleaning facilities. Because Sisters and LaPone happened at the exact same time, and we want Sun River to come in and start right sequence. We really took a finer look at how are we doing that. We staggered our openings so that staff and everybody we wouldn't be trying to open the same. And so basically what we did staggered with a good week in between them, so that each of them can be set up, organized. And we did the same with Sun River. So, our plan right now with Sun River is to take our temporary trailer complex out of Sisters and move it over to Sun River after we're done opening Sisters. So Sisters opens first before LaPone. But it allows us to move that temporary trailer over, get it set up. And then we want to get LaPone open before we start shutting down Sun River. And it's just, it evens out the work activity across the entire office. For our consultants, our contractors, and also probably most impactful was on staff. And that way we're not overtaxing them, they can maintain operations of what's going on and set up the new one. We put a little bit more time in for making sure that we have ample time for staff to get in, put out the collection, really. You have an empty building and you gotta make it ready for the public. And so we added some more time in there, make sure we have ample time to do that. So we weren't like rushing it last time. So those were the changes on the schedule there. Redmond is held very consistent for its transition from existing facility into the temporary facility. And then commence demolition, construction, and same with the construction period. We pushed out the opening from early August to the third week of August, and it was really building more time in for staff. We had too many things stacked where we were putting in furniture and trying to move staff and collection in a really short period. And as we looked at it, we just said, you know, it's a big life. There's a lot to go in. So that time was really extended to give staff ample time, move in, set up, and prepare again. The temporary facility will continue to operate through all of it. Our temporary facilities, you know, sisters, contractor, SunWest Buildings has already started work out there and prepping the site to receive the temporary trailer set up. It's delivered here another week or so, and it's on the 20th that it arrives. And then they'll get it finalized, set up, ready where we can put all the furniture that goes in there. It's not a lot, some display units. And then in first week of January after the New Year, we'll start that transition out of closing the building and moving in. That takes about 2 weeks there, where we've got time to flex and get that work done. That means set ready to go. Well, Pine is probably struggling a bit in the Park and Recs department. Their contractors submitted for their plan check, submitted in plan check, pull their permit for their TI, and the county hasn't approved their permit yet. So we've had steel architects. Derek, he reached out to the county plan checker for us, even though it's not their plans. He knew the plan checker. Find out, it said that those plans were supposed to be reviewed this week. It's a very simple deal, a small space. The contractor said he commenced work and did everything that he could up until he needed an inspection. So he thinks about 4 weeks after he gets a permit, he would be with an occupancy. He finished the work, get it inspected. So we've worked with EPL to come up with what is all over. We had initially set our schedule at the time we didn't actually start, contract didn't start until January 20, which we're still planning to have them start then. And we'll probably have a period of time there where, you know, we'll operate right up into that period, and then there'll be a short period of time before we open up the temporary facility this fall and be able to get done. It's one that once they turn it over to us, we probably need 2 days to go in there, set shelving, because it's everything is just formatted, put it in place, put what collection goes in, which is mostly old. I think that will transition fairly fast. The resident temporary space is coming along really nicely. They're putting flooring in this week. They're going to be doing the final painting. We're going to be doing punch lists with them, and they're right on target to deliver us that space the first of the year. So right. We did take possession of the storage area first of December, as we talked about last month, and we've already started utilizing it. The team got in there, laid out how we're going to store everything, figured all of that out, the planning aspects, and we're starting to move things. That will really pick up over the next 2 weeks, and books are being reclassified. I would say they're also going into boxes and then starting to move over to that. They start moving out furniture out, sisters, behind them, but that process will be all the way through the end of January. But the space is working really well. The on Stevens Ranch schedule, we extended. So as we were going through the schematic design, we were looking at it really determined that the way staff was being distributed throughout the building and how that was affecting the public space wasn't creating most efficient use of the space in the building. And so we shifted gears and said, okay, let's relook at this. And one of the things that it's going to look much more like what we saw at Golden, where staff was all consolidated on one floor in the lower level, with receiving and everything. And then the two upper floors, 100% dedicated public to the collection, the open space up there. It's really created much improved use of the space, presentation, and how the programs really flow together up there. In doing that, when we had everybody scattered, we had that step in the floor. Remember, we went down from one. We looked at that and said, you know, why can't we create a flat floor? And figured out how we can create a flat floor. Or that we want to make that change. You know, long term, it's going to be much more functional building. I think it actually created a much more exciting presentation with what they're on. And so they've been working through that, but as we went through that process, we had to adjust our schedule, put in that traditional time for the schematic design and change. I've updated the schedule based on one extension where we were at, but we're still working with what will finalize that. We asked them to make all of these changes and literally bless some of them. Yes. So we'll have a further update next month on Stevens Ranch, where that's kind of shaped. We moved down a few weeks initially, but as we looked at it as a team, thought about, okay, is this important to do? And the answer was yes. You know, right now, when we can really affect the quality of our design space, it hasn't gotten better, and it's actually probably gotten.
Can I just pause a second?
Yeah.
Bunny, are you hearing everything okay from Greg's?
Yes, some of it's a little tougher to hear. If there's any way he could come closer to the microphone, or I don't mean for you to have to stand up, Greg, all this time.
No, we're gonna have scoot him forward. I think it's affecting the closed captioning as well. So this this is a new owl belongs to this pen. So
It's going on there with the schedule there, Stephen. We're refining that, looking at where we're at now. We're not trying to accelerate other parts of our design process because we really don't believe that's good for the design. And we do have a certain amount of flexibility in to do this. Still, you know, it's not, it does push our overall direction. Still not picking up.
sorry, yeah, it's just a weird. It's everything you say is yeah. You've turned into a beetle.
But for some reason, Todd, you are very loud and clear, much more so than Greg. I don't know why that would be.
It might be where we put it.
It's pointed towards.
Yeah.
He's not swiveling around.
I think the difference is just this owl. Ready? How is that? Does that sound any better?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Should be coming from the,
From the
well, I
owl.
don't know. What do you?
I still hear Todd very loud. And
Oh, okay, that might have something to do with it. Let's try this. Let's see. Speaker, microphone. Oh,
There we go.
All right.
Bunny, how's it now?
wow, that's loud and clear.
Buddy, you probably scoot back a little bit.
Oh, I like being close.
All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So, I think that's kind of the big picture overall of where we're at schedule wise and what's going on with that. We'll continue to monitor that as we go through. And over this next month, really fine tune what we're doing with the Stevens Ranch schematic design. One other component that changed in the schedule was we've been working with our land use consultant who's helping on our site plan application. And they recommended.
Sorry, are you getting?
There's no closed caption now.
Oh, you might need to re-select it.
I tried it and it wouldn't. Oh, now it's,
Okay.
coming up.
Now it's coming?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's technology, right?
People just really want to hear what you have to say.
Yes.
That's it.
So, as I was saying, on the Stevens Ranch, we made some adjustments to our site plan application, and it was really certain periods of city review, appeal periods, and comment periods that our land use consultant requested that we make some adjustments in the durations based on their real life experience of what's happening in the city of Bend right now. And so we made those adjustments that, created a bit of the push. So it's the combination of the two of them. And that site plan application follows schematic design. So they're compounded there. The dates are all updated in the table in the report. So those are accurate to when we're shutting things down and starting construction, and then when we are reopening, construction complete, and then the opening date. So if there are any questions, let me know. On the budget, as we're always monitoring that constantly. Throughout the month of November, we had major things happening with the branches. Sisters in Lapine, SunWest Builders, is our CMGC, put it out to final bidding to set the GMPs on both of those. They both came in higher than our budget. Both of the projects did. And concurrently, we were also budgeting the Sun River project. And so we're budgeting it based on the DD design plans, but also capturing the knowledge that we're getting back from the bidding to say what's going on in the market, what's happening with our prices, and how is their cost estimates compared to the actual sub bids that resulted, so that we could update Sun River to more realistic numbers. As we looked at the GMPs and we looked at, okay, they went up in cost. What were those drivers? Certain components were things that we wanted in the design that got added in at the final CDs. And those were just elements of how the building was going to function, finishes or materials. There's a couple areas that we're looking at right now on our mechanical system and our door hardware where we may actually be able to save some money back because they came in much higher. So we're looking at a couple of potential alternates there. But what I've done on the budget side is looked at, okay, these are where the numbers are, where I think they're going to be really close, and made those adjustments to increase the budgets on all three projects there. And that's in the construction cost line item that those went up. And that was the biggest jump. We did have a few other things that adjusted in the moving cost and some of the temporary facility cost. All of the increases were in the branches. Now, concurrent looking at Redmond and where we stood on Redmond, we had very favorable results in our GMP there, and have gone through all those details with Kirby Nagelhout because it is much bigger, much more complicated, and made all of the subcontractor awards that were bid out were completed, and just reconfirmed all our numbers. There were no changes or significant changes from the last time we talked about where the bidding came in at. And I looked at where is our contingency sitting on Redmond. And so I lowered that contingency down. It was up around an average of about 10%. And it's now down to about 8%. and reallocated those contingency dollars over to the branches to increase the budget on the branches to deal with the cost overruns. The other thing that changed was our interest income off of the investments. And so Piper Sandler gave us another update. And so that was actually, sizable amount of money. I want to say it was like $400,000 that went up. And so that increased interest earnings was then also planned to be utilized by the branches and to put that. So those were the major adjustments that happened in there. We did reduce some cost on Redmond for our soft costs for testing inspection fees. And that was because we were able to bid out all of that work now that we have construction schedule, final plans, and get quotes from the vendors. And those came in under budget. And so I was real comfortable that, hey, I could reduce those budgets, still having ample money for the contracts and also some line item contingency there for those guys. And that was a couple $100,000 there that it came down. So those were the major changes there. Our overall contingency, it's at just about 21 million for the bond program, which is, I think it's 9.72%. So I think still very healthy there, as we move into construction and sign GMPs and we're buying our FF&E, we're going to start to see the use of contingency. But I'm still very happy that we're almost at a full 10% going in where we're at this point in the overall bond program with the phases of construction. There were no changes to Stevens Ranch or Downtown Bend or the administrative costs. Those all stayed the same. And I did put a note in here is that as we deal with these, the budgets we had set a long time ago for East Bend, for this facility, remain in the budget untouched. So as you go through the process of determining what wants to happen with East Bend, those are still protected, set there. Should you say, hey, let's do the full renovation or do anything else? Those budgets still remain. So the on procurement issues, like I said, on Kirby, we've got their final GMP amendment for the first big chunk. That's done. They've got their subcontracts out with Southwest Builders. We've got 2 amendments going, one for Sisters, one for Lapine. And there's a separate summary on that for approval for Todd's authorization. The testing inspection that I mentioned, most of those are under or within Todd's signature limit. They're not big contracts. They can be $20,000 to $50,000. So those have all been priced out, processed, and issued as either change orders to existing contracts for some of them or new contracts in some cases. With our FF&E, so the furniture, we have our first, and there's a separate summary on our first furniture purchase, which were Sisters in Lapine. So it's all the furniture in those 2 facilities. And we'll talk more about that, but they came in at budget on those. So we're very happy with that. We have 1 RFP out right now. It's for the early learning fabricator. So all the stuff that Plus and Greater Than is going to design, and these are highly customized. So we came up with a RFP that brings them on board in a design assist role based on their qualifications and capabilities to work closely with us and figure out how to build these specialty components. And so we'll be coming back to you in January with the results of that. So we get proposals next week and we'll be evaluating them. We have a team who the architects Plus and Greater Than, DPL, a whole good mix of evaluators on that piece. On insurance, our broker, Brown & Brown, they're out procuring our builder's risk policies that we'll have in place before we commence construction on Sisters Lapine and Redmond. I saw an email today that the quotes have come in and they're going through them right now. So we'll be getting that all put in place and ready for construction. So we have our DSIP, which is our liability policy for the district. And all of the contractors are getting enrolled in that. I talked with Kirby about it and they said it's going really smooth. The administrator's doing a good job of communicating, getting all of the subs enrolled as well as our generals. So we'd like to hear that because that is a big risk mitigation measure. On our entitlements, nothing new at this point, you know. Stevens Ranch, that'll happen out in April timeframe that we'll be doing that submittal to the city. So it's a ways out in our schedule before we get to that point. And nothing on Redmond. As far as design, I kind of talked to you a little bit about what we were doing with Stevens Ranch. So that's, you know, roaring through. I expect that we may have the schematic design ready for the February board meeting. It's going to be really close. And Miller Hole will come back and do another presentation and you'll really get to see what we're seeing in the progress of where this is going and show that to you at that point. So that's moving right along. And then we'll be doing budget updates at that point with both Kirby and our cost estimator, JLP. With Redmond, we're in plan check with the city. Miller Hall said that they're having real good communication with the city. They're, you know, we got our initial comments back on all of our site plans. And so that is gone well and they're working on responding to that. We got approval for our demolition permit. So we actually, I think the fees were paid yesterday. And so we're going to have a permit ready to commence demo. Our next round of permits will be our site permits for grading and then finally our building permit. But Miller Hall indicated that they were already starting to get comments back on our building permit and which is it's been about 5 weeks since we turned in our plans and some agencies are be 5 months before you get comments. So this was, you know, just fantastic news that they're moving along. The communication is good. I think the city's workload may be up, down a little bit. So we're getting good attention on that side. So very happy with that progress. On Sisters and Lapine, the renovation work are approved, permits issued. Our temporary facility for Sisters is approved and permit is issued. So we're ready to go on those projects 100% permit wise. And so we're in real good shape there. That was through the county. We had real good success on that. It really tracked to our timeline. So very happy with how that's gone. The on Sun River, we actually get what is the 50% construction document. It's a set we use for budgeting to double check our budget again. And we'll do a final review and comment with DPL and the Miller Hall team. And those come out today. And then we'll see final CDs in a couple months out in February, and they will go into plan check at that time. And then we are going to hold off and set our GMP as late as possible because there's a gap from we'll have permits and plans done long before we're ready to start construction because of how we stagger the work. So it means we're going to be able to bid a much later set of documents. And, so that'll happen late spring in the May, June timeframe. So that's really kind of it. Nothing, of course, on East Bend or downtown Bend. The draw was processed. Everything's going well there on funding and payments. Not having any issues. I did update the summary schedule to match and align with our master development schedule. So if there's questions about that, and then the budget is in here. That's been updated and aligns with cost paid as of the end of October, and then the budget adjustments that I spoke to. So any questions?
I had one on the procurements and contract section of the report you wrote. Can you just remind me what's Red Point?
So Red Point is our company.
Oh, it's your company?
Yes.
Okay. Right,
That
that's
is,
fine.
that is us. Yeah.
All right, and then,
And it's kind of interesting, right? Because the contract is with Deschutes Mixes.
right, that's okay.
And it was kind of a joint venture between Deschutes Mixes and myself, and I have my own
Okay, I
company,
understand now.
GH Consulting at the time. And then after we came together, we decided to form a new company, and we're all partners in it. The Deschutes Mixes team and myself.
And then I had another question, and it's probably deals with the next section, but I know with the furniture, the fixtures, remind me, what is the equipment? What's the E portion?
So it's things, in our case, it's all of our FE tech, which is the automated material handling system, the RFID, so the gates, the electronic gates, the hold shelves, the book drops
Okay.
is one component of equipment. The other is our computer equipment and any AV equipment that we're purchasing direct. So it's those kinds of things that we don't buy through the general contractor, but we buy directly. And often it's because DPL already has established vendors or materials that they are using. So like our computers, Mark Kobe will buy all of that for us.
I have a couple
Bonnie?
of questions. So as I understand, there's no land work being done on Stevens Ranch yet, or are you doing anything there at all?
No, we haven't started any actual work out on site. The developer is doing their work out on site. So
Okay, and the second question, given that Sisters in Lapine went over your budget like that, you talked about Sun River and but what about Stevens Ranch? Is that gonna make a difference as far as it going over budget then?
you know, right now, I would say no. We have a budget that we've established that we're designing to. Our next budget check, where we will actually go back and have it repriced, will be based on our schematic designs. But as Miller Hall is working on developing the designs, they're also meeting every week with Kirby Nagelhout, our general contractor. And they talk about what the structural system is doing and how it's being designed. And Kirby is advising, you know, hey, that's going to cost more money. Could we do it this way? So it's an active activity going on of design with their. So watching it and like guiding it to say, hey, we still have to, we have one bucket of money and the design has to fit in that. And so Miller Hall is very cognizant of that. But our true test will be our schematic budget update that we do, which will be in probably February. And then, and that's when we will actually take those plans, reprice them, and verify where we're at.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, this is kind of like Cynthia, it's kind of back in this other report, but what did we learn from, because I mean, some of those estimates, some of the original budgets for some of those things appeared to be off by a significant factor. I mean, there were large, you know, like double the cost, and some were much less, obviously.
Yeah.
And that always happens, but what did we learn from that? Are there trends that we see in these smaller branches that are worrisome as we move forward and or that will inform what we think we're gonna be able to do in the future projects?
I think what drove a lot of this cost on the smaller branches, it was relative to the renovation.
Okay,
In that, as we looked at it, we did say, okay, hey, it's doors. We were going to try and reuse some doors. And eventually we looked at it and said, we need to put new doors in.
okay,
So our door price went up. We looked at the storefront assemblies at each of those buildings. And the same thing is, there were some things that we thought we could save. And when we really, in our final analysis of the design and how it's going to function, and the fact that we said, okay, wait, we're setting these buildings up for a long-term life.
mhm,
So that was a bit of it, is that scope increased.
right. So different
And that
choices.
took, yeah.
Yeah.
Our drywall numbers were too low.
Mhm.
And that was something SunWest said, that they saw that when they got their bids in, what they were budgeting in their estimates, just the overall cost of drywall rose. And they did say that could have been partly just that they underestimated that. That trade was very busy. They had a number of bidders who they expected to bid it, who said, we don't have capacity. We can't do the job. We're not going to give you a price because you may pick us and then we don't have anybody to do it. And that would hurt us a bit because there were some bigger, real qualified drywall contractors that had to step out. So I think we ended up with one, we're using some smaller subs to do it, but they tend to operate on a higher cost margin. We had more acoustical work that we did. So in both Sisters and Sun River, there's some old acoustical tiles that are up high in the ceilings, if you look up there. And it's the old 12 by 12 blue on acoustical tile that, from a performance standpoint, they know today that they're not as good as what we can do.
Mhm.
And we're actually going to completely replace that acoustical aspect. So our acoustical materials went up in cost there. So the doors were a big factor, drywall was a big factor. On our HVAC system, because we've really pushed hard for high energy efficiency. And one of the things that we're learning is we pushed to be able to really evacuate and clean the air from smoke.
Right.
And so the equipment that we selected is quite expensive. And in one case, it was $100,000 impact. On the other building, it was like 50, and that had to do with capacity, the size of the units. They're different between the two buildings, surprisingly, but they are. We're looking at, are there other options there? And are they worth it? We've kept the money in to do it because that was something that we really wanted to do with the mechanical system, is make sure we fully upgraded it, because that's an operating system. They're going to break, they're at near the end of their useful life anyway, from when they were first built. And especially with the what's available nowadays for energy, and just the fact that when we said, look, we want to be able to deal with the smoke, that added in a component. And I think our mechanical numbers were low from that aspect. So those were some of the real big ones.
Okay. It wasn't like, well, drywall is a material.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like iron, steel or.
No, these, because they're small renovations, it's a lot of finish work
Right.
and we're doing a lot with the mechanical, electrical, plumbing work in really trying to upgrade those systems. And so as we looked at, hey, what did we learn from these two? How are we applying that over here on Sun River? That's why we boosted Sun River's budget up. because we're expecting that we're gonna do the same things.
Right.
I think in the end, and we talked about this, well, should we cut back? And the decision was no, it's, you were sacrificing quality of what we're doing in the renovations and did not recommend doing that. I think that the overall bond program can afford that, especially with the savings that were happening in Redmond budget. And I felt that was a very safe move to move those dollars. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it or recommended it. And, but also that when we're done with the Sisters Lapine projects, and we're really given as everything that we possibly can in the renovation. We did a lot more on the exterior as well. Those budgets were up on one of them. We had more money in one. Sisters went up some in that we're replacing more sidewalk to make sure it's ADA compliant and work function better. It's really going in the same spot, and then making some of our landscape changes.
Yeah, I just, the things that I worry about, I just don't want to spend a bunch of money early on the first projects and then not have any left.
Yeah.
For some of the highest use branches. So,
Exactly.
but I want to make sure that we do a good job. So it sounds like it's a.
Yeah. No, I'm very confident that Redmond is in a really sound position right now, and it still is carrying a very healthy contingency in there, and that facility is in a really good position. Stevens Ranch, to me, one of the things we have to do is we have to design to our budget, and we'll have to adjust to maintain that budget as we go through. I think the market there has a lot more potential to impact it because it's a big building. And so if we see changes in the market, lumber has been dropped all the way down to historical lows at this moment. Now, the lumber market goes up and down all the time. But that's a good indicator just overall, with all the inflation that we're seeing and the cost escalation that we're seeing, that's a big commodity that's come down. Steel is somewhat stayed fairly flat. We're going to have a large lumber building, it's a wood frame building structure. So it's good to see that market much more stable, because we'll actually be buying that in about a year plus from now. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Let me just ask, you say on Stevens Ranch, the first floor is gonna be leveled out.
Yeah.
And I heard you say, correct me if I'm wrong, all of that will be on the ground level.
Yes, there are staff spots on the upper floors where they have their workspace, but the staff office area is all.
Couldn't quite hear the question.
Oh,
Can you take?
yeah. The question was, is all the staff gonna be on the ground level?
And significantly, yes, they have spots where they can stay up on levels 2 and 3, but all the offices and all of the main staff are going to be on level 1.
And so we'll see those schematic designs before they move forward with it. We'll go through that
Yeah, in February.
February.
I think that's when I'm fine tuning that timeline with Miller Hall right now. But it's going to be real close based on when the board meeting is.
Are they planning to go back out to the public with redesign of the ground level? As the public input was on the original schematic.
It's really not changing that significant. I mean, when you see it, you're going to say, well, it looks, the meeting rooms are in the same place, the main entry plaza is in the same place, and the, kind of 3-level tower is in the same place. It's more of how it's gone from concept to where it is, of how we move stuff within those spaces. So it's not something that we would take back out to the public. For that, this is really, it's the same building reorganized The raising the floor is more about structural and then operations of how operations flow. So it's not really changing what you see. Now, I think by doing that, the way that the presentation is that you see, I think it looks much more dramatic and super inviting that you walk in and you're going to see this incredible, you can see up through and how the building presents itself to the customers and how they'll be able to see, oh, wow, there's the kids area, the teen area, you know. So I don't think it's something that we need to go back out to.
So it really was just the elimination of those steps and
Yeah.
then kind of bringing them for us. So it's going to be that smooth.
Yeah.
Kind of transitional space. there.
Yeah. We've literally, one side went down a little and one side came up, and that's where our civil engineer sat and he figured out dirt move. And he did a bunch of studies and said, hey, this is your optimal one right here. And so Miller Hole they're still fine tuning that, and it's just adjusting that building height. The site stayed exactly the same except for the grades.
What are some examples of what's an early learning element?
So these are, I don't want to say they're pieces that go into, especially in the children's area. It's actually almost all in the children's area. And it's where kids can go in and explore and play. And so they have these pieces that they are designing, they being Miller Hall and plus and greater than, that will allow kids. So one of them they call trailheads. They can go in there and take it out and play with it, and it stimulates learning, is how I understand it. Sean Paul, are you still here?
Yeah.
No, these are not, they're designing something new, and that the design team that's doing this hasn't finished designing, so we don't have real concepts to show. I think they are aiming, we just talked about it yesterday, for the first or second week of January to have some of those.
Yeah, we'll see more than, they're furniture components. So they're not built in, they're not built by our general contractors. They integrate into our shelving at points of where they will be. One of the components are these carts, and the carts have all kinds of things. They're not just a toy, but it's something that is meant to help stimulate the learning process up. And this works for, if I remember right, from little tiny babies up. You know, I don't know what the beginning age is, 1 or 2.
Well, and we're still in the middle of design. We
Yeah.
actually have a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks to actually sit and design that.
So these are things that other libraries already have. Each library has to design, that's been new design for each project.
Yeah, they're not things that you buy off the shelf, but they are custom, all of the pieces will be custom designed to fit into each individual location. Because even Sisters and Lapine are very similar, but still different of how it fits in the floor. What's in Redmond, they're also looking at how do they make unique, but able to be moved from branch to branch, so that they can, certain parts can move so that they can be shared by throughout the district.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there the availability of those components to be shared?
Yeah, so like these carts, they can take the whole cart out because they pull it out to use it. Well, it can be taken out and trucked over and another one moved. So the district will have that ability. There will be some components that are probably built, you know, that aren't movable or mobile.
If it's anything like the downtown Vancouver library, their children's area is fantastic. It's fun, I think.
Yeah. And they're designed for us to reflect where we live, right? I mean, they're to resonate with the people who live here.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's hard to describe until you can see it. It's, because all of that is very subtle, so they don't want to make it where it's really obvious, like this is a tree. The whole point of this is to allow the child to interpret, what will I make this today be? Is it a building? Is it a tree? Is it a lion? Right? And that, so it's how they come across shapes and interact with them, and how we present things to them through a variety of ways, like Greg was saying, through these activity parks that will travel across the district, the things that are maybe more permanent in the space that they can climb and hide in, and through to actually like doing activities with either librarians or a parent or caregiver. So it's a variety of things. We're really excited to see their full plan. And again, it'll be for Redmond, Sisters full time. So we're seeing. We'll definitely share that with you all. Yeah.
Any other questions for Greg?
None, the furniture procurement, so this is, the summary was there about, we went out. We're utilizing the cooperative agreements, and we talked about that. We used it for moving and storage company. And these are the agreements that DPL is a member of, therefore the public agencies to utilize. And the people that operate the cooperative agreements do this on behalf of all public agencies who want to sign up. And I think DPL is a member of 5 cooperatives. And so this was one for our furniture. And so through that, we were able to look at who our manufacturers were and of the furniture that's being specified. And then who's the dealer for those manufacturer. And then are they members of the cooperatives? And often we find that, so like with this furniture award, we're going to use 3 different cooperative agreements to buy the furniture. And the dealer is a member of all 3, but the manufacturers are members in different ones. And we get better pricing with one than another. So, it's kind of maximizes our buying power and allows us to utilize the cooperative agreement. And so we're ready to award this first contract to Pacific Workplace Resources of Oregon. And they are the dealer that will basically do all the purchasing, do all the installation and delivery. They're our single source of contract. It's likely that we may have another dealer that we work with on some components that this dealer couldn't furnish to us. But for the most part, I think we probably bought about 95% of all the pieces of furniture through this one dealer, because they've repped like 12 of our manufacturer. And so that really helps us on the process of installation, all of our samples and materials and the purchasing. So in summary, it's really the request is for authorization for Todd to sign for the 2 contracts here, which total about 280,000, or that's the signing authority. We're going through fine tuning the proposals. I put in behind there the summary of the proposal that came in, and right now we're making some final selections on fabrics that go on some of the furniture. There's been a few things discontinued, and so Miller Hall is reselecting, and that often will have changes, but they're very small amount of changes. So any questions about it? Yes.
I was just wondering who's making the choices of like the materials and the furniture and things.
The staff.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the branch managers and the librarians, they're all having input as to it.
Yeah, and to be able to get samples from them that we share with all the staff in the branch. Like right now, we just are sending some down to La Pine and Fixtures and Sun River, and they're able to look at it based in the lighting and be part of all that. The furniture, the carpet, paint colors, the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
like building a house.
That's what I was
All the
hoping was
minor
happening.
details.
It's like building a house.
Right.
You know, somebody who has nothing, who never is gonna go in the library, make a decision.
Yeah, no. Yes, Bonnie.
Will any of the furniture in either of the, or any of the libraries be used, the existing furniture? Or do we go with all new?
There's a few, there are some pieces that are gonna. Oh, hi, Robert.
Yeah, so Bunny, we're maintaining a pretty comprehensive list of the pieces that we have in each of the locations. And we've earmarked certain ones that are relatively new purchases in excellent condition that we'll be able to retain for the new libraries. And then I'll leave it to Greg to kind of go into the nuance of how we're making those judgment calls. But yeah, if you ever want to look, we've got like a binder full of basically, it's a spreadsheet printout with all the items and everywhere.
Okay.
And I think outside of that, we looked at for the entire bond program and for the district, with this upgrade across is to standardize the equipment, the furniture as much as possible so that it can be utilized in different places, especially the standard chairs, tables and stuff that are in conference rooms and that, the pieces that are out in the library itself. Like we just talked about, often those color schemes may be different. But a lot of the functional stuff, everything that you see sitting here, right? Whether it's the chairs and these tables and this kind of stuff, will all be standardized and brought up as much as possible new across the board, except for where we truly have found really good stuff. And that helped our budget. This came in under budget in part because we reutilized the tables, work desks that were in really good shape and they were new and had a lot of life in them.
Yeah, and one other thing, just to say that we thought really hard about trying to make this equitable. So we didn't want some of the renovations happening at branches, say in some of the smaller of the libraries, to feel like we were not treating them equitably with any of these acquisitions. So we really did want it to be consistent and across the board. Where we kept across the board, and where we're getting new across the board.
Good. Thank you.
This is just for my information. What is a 40-gallon waste recipient? 40-gallon body waste recipient. For me, coming out of medical, I'm like, what are we doing with body waste?
Better not ask, Ray.
I hope this. So the very first item for both districts and
I gotta look again and see if I can answer that question.
page 1 on 4, and then present that one. Item 2. Oh, and then 2 of these. And then there's a magnet.
So the 40-gallon body is relating to the size of the can. So it will hold 40 gallons,
Okay, so it's not a body waste.
not body waste, but the body of it is a 40-gallon size. It's an odd way to name, it, right?
It's a hyphenation problem
Yeah.
here. Already.
Exactly. You threw me when you said you body waste. And I don't remember that, but it is truly our large trash cans.
Tame.
Yeah.
Well, I saw it.
Well, and, in so many, the different industries out there, they have their nomenclature that sometimes it makes no sense, or you see abbreviation and it's like, what does this mean at all?
Yeah.
Flag.
But that's what it is. They're just our normal large trash cans that we have.
The other question is, are you including ergonomic furniture for staff in their work area?
Yeah, so a lot of the desks that we are reusing are set up to be sit stand. All all the new chairs that we're getting, office type chairs, I think we got 3 different chairs, physical chairs that rotated through a bunch of the branches, if not all of them. To where everybody could test it for, I think we had them for like 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Yeah, so that staff could get in there and then everybody voted and we came up with the one that everybody was the most liked.
Okay.
So no, it
Yeah.
definitely looking at that, and that I think Miller Hall is doing a good job of looking at, as well as Robert and the DPL team has so much working experience of what works for them and what doesn't.
Yeah, that's always been a concern ever since we did build the downtown library.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of great notes from staff in terms of feedback on those chairs as well. It really helped us to make the decision.
You know, and even other areas, there's like certain types of flooring where staff have to stand a lot. And we're using a different type of more padded, flexible flooring. I think it's the induction stations. And so,
Check in.
yeah, and so to really look at how does that work in the building design as well as the furniture.
I'd entertain a motion if anyone's ready.
To authorize the library director to execute a contract with Pacific Workplace Resources of Oregon for the Sisters in Lapine Libraries furniture contract for up to $280,000.
Your second? Second. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
The second summary was for the Sisters in Lapine, SunWest Builders, who's our CMGC, they're GMPs. And so we have contracts already, or contracted, one master contract for the branches with them. And this will be a contract amendment to set the GMP for each of them. And so, as I mentioned, you know, they went out to competitive bidding, published, you know, in all of the local, whether it's the DJC and Bulletin, as well as the bid rooms to attract subcontract bidders, receive those bids and then put together their final GMP budgets that we've gone through with them and talked about each of the different items. And some of the questions we talked about earlier, what caused, you know, the budgets to be where they're at. So at this point, we're ready to make those awards and move forward with those contracts. And that's where the authorization is. They're both right below 2.9 million. So I put authorization up to 2.9 in case we have any minor adjustments, not expecting them. But any other questions about these awards?
I have a quick question. When there's zeros in there for the cost, does that mean, I'm assuming, you know, there's no elevator, so you have 0 there, but there's some other things that are zeroed out, green energy technology and those sort of things. What does that mean?
Yeah, so generally when you see the zeros, it does mean there's no scope and therefore there's no dollars in those line items. But it's the standard divisions of work that come out of their estimating system. On the specific one about the green energy technology, that is, you know, we have a requirement to spend 1% of our development budget on renewable energy. We're spending it on Redmond and on Stevens Ranch because we can do the most. And that's how we're pushing. Both of those are LEED certified, and we're going for net zero on both of those. So those dollars were moved out of the branch budgets, all of the branches in downtown Bend, and reallocated over to the 2 new buildings. Funny.
Okay. Okay.
I
Interesting.
think the other one that's in there in pre-construction services. And we had them remove that because we already awarded that and it's already in their contract. Yeah, so it's not part of this addendum.
Let me get this straight. So you've got the cost and you've got 50% CD and variance. The 50% for what we're looking at here is the final GMP.
Yes, under the cost column, the bolded one. What SunWest does for us is they show us their previous budget, which is what's called 50% CD. And then the variance was doing the cost comparison. And I didn't attach, there's pages of detail
Right.
that go behind these. But that's what that's there for. It helps us evaluate the GMP and understand why is it, what happened back and forth.
So my understanding of the GMP is this is it. This is their price. If they go over, they eat it
Yes,
unless we mention for that.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
The,
there should be no change orders after this, either from us or the architects. If everybody's agreed that how it's buildable.
yes, I would say the one thing that is there is if there's something that was totally unforeseen that SunWest could not have anticipated, but you know, we tear something open and we find a condition that wasn't expected. That would be where they can make a request for additional dollars. Now, we are carrying a contingency within their budget, which does help to deal with some of those types of things. They've anticipated a lot of, okay, they put money in where they think, hey, we may need to do this because it is a renovation. I hate to say absolutely no change orders because in reality, there is a point, you know, if the architect designs something that doesn't work, but we can't figure that out now, and we get out there and we figure out this design has to change. Doesn't happen all the time and not a lot, but it potentially could. And then that would be a responsibility. And that's where we carry our own separate contingency still. And on the branches, in the budget side, I did not want to lower our contingency, the owner's contingency, because it's a renovation. And when you start tearing things apart, and you may think, oh, it's just like when on Sun River, the more we dug into the roof structure, we realized, hey, when they built this, they built it wrong. And now we're fixing it. That we found out early. But sometimes as you tear out, do the demo, you expose more and we'll find out if there's any surprises. That's our biggest risk is, are those unforeseen conditions.
But my understanding was on the whole reason, the advantage of the GMP reduces or tries to eliminate our risk.
Yes.
Right. So there really shouldn't be change orders or anything coming up because the architectural firm and the contractor and our staff have gone in there to look, even on a remodel. Say, this is what needs to be remodeled, this is what needs to be done. We're not going to go into the wall and find all the electrical is made out of something weird. We've looked at these things, they've looked at it. Then they increase their costs, their bid, based upon this is a maximum price, but it's built higher than just design build because of that. So they've got someone that's built into their bid, a buffer of their own.
Correct.
Villa Hall had it in theirs, cover some of their costs if they have to do a redesign.
That's on them.
That's on them.
Right. If there's,
So
unless
everybody
it's
has-
something that
everybody
nobody
agrees.
could see,
Everybody's increased their estimates. Right.
but it
Covers-
doesn't work that exact.
Uh,
Even in both of their contracts, in the design contract and in the construction contract, is there are still situations where you can't contract away 100% of the risk. And that's what I'm saying is, I think they've all done really good planning and investigations. We did destructive, you know, you go in and you don't we go cut little holes, right, to look in, but we don't strip out a whole wall. To try and get a good sense of what's in there and do a lot of looking into what's there. I know SunWest, they crawled in the crawl spaces, they were in the attics, trying to find things to make sure we've got it all anticipated. But I wouldn't say, oh, it's perfect, because we don't live in that perfect world. Now, I think we're in a really good shape where we have a good, strong GMP that has allocated funds for a lot of things that we think may happen. And if they don't spend those dollars, at the end of the day, those dollars are returned to the library. The library gets all savings. But I just would never say there's zero chance of something happening, because I think that potential always exists, even in a GMP format contract.
I will highlight the other part of the GMP, and that is I've definitely seen where we're saving money because the contractors are working with the architects saying, okay, you want to achieve this, using gold plating, but we found a way to do this for a lot less. And the architects come back and say, yeah, that works for us too. And so that's kind of a hidden piece of our savings, which I've been very impressed with.
Yeah, I think we've had multiple instances of that all the way along where there have been adjustments as we go because we've got good minds working on it from different angles.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to authorize signing authority to the library director up to $2,900,000 for the SunWest Builders Sisters Lapine GMP contract amendment and up to $2,900,000 for the SunWest Builders Lapine Library GMP contract amendment.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimously. Thank you. That's great. That was great. Very thorough. Okay, so now we're on to our monitoring report, and this is one of the ones, this is communication and support to the board. And this is one of the ones that we do by direct inspection. And so we've got the executive limitation, policy title and the description here, which I'm sure that you read, but this is about the library director providing the board with the necessary information it needs to make timely, good decisions. And so the way we've done this in the past, if I recall correctly, is that we've just kind of gone down the row and said whether we think that we've been adequately informed and how we feel the communications to the board has been, whether there have been instances where we wanted different types of communication so that God knows whether we're getting the information we need.
I will highlight just on the very first bullet about submitting monitoring data that probably the one exception to this year is the audit. Because it's not coming until January. That has to do with their auditor not completing the audit. They have contractually until the end of December to do it, so that's what we're aiming for. But that's just one of the monitoring reports that didn't come in the time we normal schedule.
Okay, Bunny, do you want to go first? Since
Are we just reporting in general, the communication, our feelings on the communication?
yeah, whether you feel it's been adequate.
I do. I feel like that the communication between not just Todd and the board, but the staff has been excellent. And I'm very appreciative of Todd bringing in, not just reporting it himself, but bringing in staff to report on whatever it is that they have going on. I think I've learned a lot more in that way of dealing with it, but I think it's been excellent.
All right. Ray?
I think he's met the criteria, reasonable interpretation. Oh, I think Todd met a reasonable interpretation of the policy.
And
I feel that Todd is doing a good job of keeping the board in communication. I personally appreciate when I do call or send an email to Todd for clarification or just for questions. He's very responsive and gets back to me in a timely manner. And as Bunny was saying, I do appreciate Todd bringing in the staff to share what is going on. I think that makes a big difference to me to see how everything is being handled hands-on. So I appreciate it.
I agree with everything that Bunny and Lynn just said as well. One other piece that I would add is I really appreciate the fact that there are things that have happened in the last couple of years that are happening directly with Deschutes Public Library, but impact it. And you are very good about informing us of those things too. And I really appreciate that as well. So I have a broader view than just what the board has said. Thank you.
right, I would agree with what everyone has said. I think whenever I'm struck, whenever I read this policy, I'm always struck by the fact that it's a two-way street too, that it's on us. If it's on us to ask for the information, it's on us to ask the questions. In addition to all I mean, Todd does provide us with more than we're asking for, but it's at an appropriate level, I think, and the timing on it is always excellent. But it's also up to us. If we need more information in the area, it's on us to ask for it and to let him know. But I think that this has worked well this year, and I think he's been timely, and there, as Margot would say, there have been no surprises. So that's been nice. So given that, I would entertain a motion.
Oh, can I ask Todd one question though?
Yes.
Have you received, or the library received the request from Mayor-elect Keebler for input into the relationship between the library and the city?
I have not
Received that?
received any requests from Mayor election.
Interesting.
Todd, I couldn't hear what Ray asked.
He was asking if the library had received a request for input from the mayor-elect Ben, and we have not. Should I be expecting?
I don't know. I'm just wondering if you had.
Okay.
One other agency that received it. My understanding was the city council wants to figure out ways where other government agencies that serve Ben can interact better with each other. What benefit of public? I would think we'd be one.
I have met with Mike Riley, who's the elected. And he was asking that question, how we can better communicate and work together. And he didn't even say better, he just said, how can we communicate? And he's really committed to that. We've not heard Melanie Keebler.
Let us know if you do.
But
Let me know if you do. I'd like to see the,
yeah,
apparently it's a questionnaire. I'd like to see the form.
yeah. Can you close each other agencies? received it.
The rural fire district.
Okay.
Rural fire district. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to find that the library is in compliance with the executive limitations policy 3-H, communication and support to the board.
Do I hear a second? Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes. All right, now we have an education piece.
Hey, we have Sarah Brang here and our Learning and Development Program Manager and talk about our employee engagement survey, and I'm gonna bring that up. Let's see.
All right. I can slide over here and be part of the
Yes, thank
group. I'll sit so we can get cozy little family here.
Yeah.
Bear with-
Good.
Yes.
Well, hello, everyone. Like Todd said, I am Sarah Brang. It's my second time coming to chat with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And also, it's nice to hear that you enjoy having staff come, so it makes it a little bit easier for us to show up and provide information for you. So thank you for that. And yes, today I'm going to be going through some information on the employee engagement survey. Hopefully you're able to see this. There's going to be quite a bit of data up here that I'll go through, and let me know if you have questions. But the first thing that I wanted to start with.
All right.
Sorry, hold on.
Turn it up.
There we go. That makes it
Is that better?
Yeah, there it goes. Okay. All right. So Todd, if you want to go to the next slide there. The first thing that I wanted to start with is one thing that we are really trying to do in the library is really starting with why, like stepping back and why in the world do we even have employee engagement surveys? What's the purpose of those? So really, if we step back and look at engagement surveys, what we're trying to do as an organization, you can see is have organizational excellence, and that requires continuous improvement. In order for that continuous improvement to be successful, it's really reliant on employee engagement. And that could be great. We could stop there, but then there's further layers to that. So you can see employee engagement is really dependent on employees feeling valued. And as an employee, value comes when I have a voice and I can be included in the process. So what does that mean? Well, to have a voice and be included in the process, there has to be some mechanism for me to do that. And that's where we have different areas for feedback, and that's where the employee engagement survey comes into play. So it is just one tool for us to gather data. There's many, but it's one that we can do consistently over several years and kind of measure our progress and use it as a launching point to ask further questions, so that we can get the feedback, increase the value, have staff engaged, and ultimately have everybody on board with whatever improvements we're working on so that they can be successful. So it's kind of like this cycle. The engagement survey itself, we conducted last August, just a few months ago, towards the end of August, and it went through about mid-September. And you can see we had 87% of our staff complete the survey, which was a little lower than 2 years prior. However, it's significantly higher than the benchmark that Talent Map is the organization that does the survey for us. And so they're the industry experts, and they basically say, if you can get 71%, you're like hitting it out of the park, amazing. And we've always consistently been well ahead of that, which is really fantastic. So staff feel that they can provide feedback. So now we're going to actually jump into looking at the data. And this is where I say your eyes might hurt for a minute here, but what you're looking at, what in the world are you looking at? So you see here a list of the title says the overall survey dimension scores. So each of these areas is basically a bucket of questions. So a dimension is just a category of questions that are asked. And what Talent Map does is they look at all those answers and they just do an overall score for all the answers to that dimension. So as an example, safety is at the top. And we can see for all the questions asked for safety, 91% of staff were in favor of the different safety programs and things available DPL. So that's really awesome. So that's the blue piece. The more blue, the better. The gray sections will show you where staff are kind of still unsure. So that, I'm not 100% in favor, but I'm not, not in favor. And that is the biggest opportunity where we can have some movement and help understand where we can bring staff to the favorable category. And then the orange represents those that were feeling unfavorable the time in those different questions. And then to the far right, you can see plus or minus 2020. So the numbers on the far right are going to show us how we compare with ourselves 2 years ago when we did the survey. Some of them have NA, and that's because we did add questions to this year's survey that we haven't had in the past. Some questions were modified and adjusted, and it was about a little over 50% actually that were new or modified. And that came out of the recommendations from Talent Map. They're the experts in this field. And just like we're always trying to improve, they're trying to improve. And so that's what they've done over the last 2 years. And we decided to implement a lot of the recommendations. So that's how you read what you see here. And before I start getting into some of these pieces, I want to also remind everyone, any survey is a snapshot in time. We could take the survey today, have staff do it, and I guarantee these numbers are going to be slightly different. So that's something to consider. And the other thing, as a reminder, which I know that it's kind of hard to forget because we're still in it, the last 2 years have been a bit stressful. In the entire world. Like there's so many things going on that are going to affect how we feel at any given moment. So those are, it doesn't change the data. It doesn't, change the validity of it at all, but these are always things that we need to consider and then think about when we go talk to staff to get additional feedback to see, what does it mean? So
Could I ask
Yes.
a quick question? And I know we're supposed to hold our questions to the end, but when in 2020 was this survey done?
in August. So we.
It was done. in
Right,
August.
yeah,
Okay.
so we're trying to be consistent with the timing of it.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it was during the pandemic.
Yeah, the 2020. Mhm. Yeah, at some point we'll have a little bit of a fresh start, hopefully, right? Knock on
Yeah,
wood.
well, no,
I
that's
know.
kind of what was
Yeah.
your poster. during-
Yeah, that was right in it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do, there's a lot of dimensions and I'm not gonna go through all of them. Because with anything, we have to narrow our focus or it's impossible to succeed in everything. So one of the things that Talent Map does is they look at the data and they come back and they say, okay, out of all this information from all of our expertise, we are sharing with you 3 areas that we see can have the most significant impact on employee engagement if you can increase that blue line there with satisfaction. And those top drivers is what they call them, are starred here. So we have organizational culture, growth and development, and management team. And so those are the 3 that they recommend that we really focus on, which is great. In addition to that, we also see customer focus, and it's got the orange line on it with a -17. And we're not going to ignore that because it does have the most significant decrease out of all of the dimensions. And we know customer focus is really important, right? We serve customers. It's not only important to the people walking in, but it's important to staff because that is why they're here and why they love working here. So we are throwing that in as a 4th piece that we want to focus on as an organization. And then I'm going to mention a little bit about the performance management with that little blue circle, but those are going to be the ones I'm going to talk about. And what I'll share is the feedback we received. And then what does that mean for what are we doing right now to address that or things we can do in the future? Okay. So that first one, organizational culture. What we learned out of the feedback is staff are really feeling that there is an emphasis on top-down decision-making and a lack of celebration of even small accomplishments in the organization. And certainly that's not, I don't want to say it wasn't a surprise, but one thing that happened in these 2 years was a lot of top-down decision makings to make sure that like safety is going on. There was things out of everyone's control. So having that feedback, you don't want to sit in that. That's not a best practice with any organization. So it's really good to see that. And now we can focus on how to, move away from that. But there was 2 years where a lot of that did have to happen. So what are we doing right now? Well, today was a very significant day. We have just finished the very last session of feedback training that was actually recommended over a year ago with the EDI consultant we're working with. And this is an organization-wide feedback, fundamentals of feedback training that 2 outside consultants, not only our EDI consultant, but also the coaching consultant that worked with all the leadership team, did for the entire organization. There were cohorts, it was mixed with supervisors and staff, and really looking at how can we create a healthy feedback culture so that everybody feels comfortable voicing their opinion and sharing ideas, and it goes all directions. So that was exciting, and now we are moving into what next, which is continuing to talk about it and get out there with staff and have practice, and then I'll be facilitating training with new staff, so it is something that will forever be part of the culture of the organization. We also are going to continue town halls that were very successful last year, where we went out with different pieces where we wanted feedback, and staff were able to bring their perspective and share. So depending on what we're working on with the strategic plan, we'll go out and have some town halls to involve all staff. And then the other piece that's pretty exciting, and it does come out of the strategic plan, is a new project team, and that's an internal communications project team that I'm working with. And this is to look at how can the organization kind of step out of that top down and really create a healthy communication culture where everybody has the ability to provide feedback and connect with one another. And what does that strategy look like? What do the best practices look like? So the project team will be working over the next 6-7 months to research and come up with recommendations. So we're not solving the problem and saying, here's this beautiful new newsletter, but here is what we recommend the next steps will be with that.
And just give us a sense of who's on that.
Right. Good point. So the project team, and there's several others that are going on right now, but this also goes back to staff feedback. It is a very balanced team in that we are trying to make sure that there's staff throughout the entire district and at every single level. So it's more inclusive and diverse perspectives. So we have I've got a supervisor of libraries. We have someone from the CR team. We have several PSS staff. We have a librarian. So it's really, everywhere from South or North County to South County, we're really trying to make sure that everything is diversified because we know that every single person in this room has a different way of seeing things and experiences, and that's what we need to bring to the table. So that's the organizational culture piece and what we're moving forward with that. Growth and development. This area is where we heard staff say, I want to grow this organization and I want more opportunities to grow. And what a horrible problem to have. It's the best problem to have. Everybody here needs to understand that is the best possible problem to have. It is still something that we can work on, certainly. But, there's so many organizations where I've done this myself when I was in California a lot. Like mentality is you come into an organization, you grow, and then your next step is somewhere else. Like it's not usually within. And we have an amazing staff base that have been here a very long time and enjoy what they do and love what they do and want to stay here. So what do we do now that we have this feedback? There's another project team, the Organization Reimagined project team, that is trying to think about that with respect to, all of the buildings, we're getting these amazing remodels. We have the central library, and thank you everybody sitting up here for the work that's being done for that, because it's going to bring so many amazing opportunities for programs and resources and things that can't be done right now for the community. And what that then does is create all these opportunities for staff, because we'll have to be the ones to obviously support the community. So this project team is trying to figure out, what does it look like? And then, town halls are another really great way for us to go out, because growth for you, Ray, is going to be different for you, Cynthia? Like, what does it look like for you guys to grow an organization and how we can support that? So there'll be some more feedback sessions for that as well. And then that third piece, that engagement driver of the management team. So the feedback that we learned here was staff feeling detached from the management team and feeling that there was a lack of follow through with feedback being given. So what's next? And certainly the feedback training is a huge core component of this, so that everybody in the organization, no matter where you are, who you are, has that foundation and expectations and understanding and knows their role in that process, so that that open communication can happen. And then, you know, one of the really fun pieces that is coming out of all of this transition for all the different buildings is the opportunity for not just the management team, but staff, any staff, to go out and be in a branch and help with shelving. As silly as that sounds, like, it's just a really innovative way for us to get out there. I will be at Downtown Bend next week helping with shelving. And I've already warned several of the staff, they're gonna have to fix what I do. But I'm gonna do my best, and I'm gonna be out there and assist with that. So their you know, the management team is looking at different ways to get out and just interact and be with staff, because the last 2 years, there have been a few challenges where we have said, everybody said, like, you really need to limit, just for the safety of everyone here, getting out there. And then, of course, now that we're closing several of the locations and going to smaller units, what does that look like? So there's gotta, you know, it's really some creative talk about how can we do this, because we know there's a need, and we can't let you know, the things we're working on right now get in the way of that. Like, this needs to happen. So there's some really fun pieces going in there, and also that internal communications project team, as far as the feeling that we're not getting the feedback of, you know, I gave you information, what are you doing with it? So with the internal communication project team, it's really looking at closing that gap, and how can that transparency be there, and what are those best practices, so that whoever is providing information or asking for feedback knows what are those next steps to make sure everybody has the information they need, because everybody needs slightly different things depending on where they are in the organization. All right, and then the last one, I've talked about customer focus. It's not a key driver, but it is really important to this organization. What was interesting, you know, I talked about how surveys are a snapshot in time, and this is a really good example of that. When this survey went out, it was right around the time where the new checkout model was being implemented, which meant that customer, you know, staff was really working to have customers use the kiosks instead of me as a staff member standing there waiting for somebody to come to me. With the, you know, the overall goal of being as a staff member, I can go out and help more people. You know, I don't have to just be worried about being at the desk if someone needs me. So we have these great machines that can do all of this checking out really easy. You know, how can we start utilizing them more? The feedback that we got from the staff was they felt they didn't have the ability to assist customers in the way that they needed to, because there wasn't change. And although -17 was like a punch to the gut, like, oh my gosh, we are customer focused and customer driven. From my perspective, after I got over that initial, oh my gosh, because, you know, I'm one of the first people to look at this data, is okay, it's an opportunity. And we've seen that as an opportunity to learn. And that is this learning organization. We have to step back. And I even heard from the other presentation, okay, well, costs are going up, right? What are we learning so that the next step we can anticipate that? And that's what we're doing here. Managers are out doing some listening sessions to learn more, so that we know the next time there's a change that is pretty significant and changes how I do my work during the day. We can either provide, is it upfront training? Is it being there to see things going on? Like, where is that? What are those gaps? So it is not only learning for the future, but then also anytime we're going to implement anything, that doesn't mean it's done. There's always opportunities to improve. And that's part of this process too, is really looking at it and saying, okay, is it working? Is it not working? You know, can we have 2.0? Or if things are going well and it was just a matter of information, let's work on that or training. So that is a really great opportunity. And I do see it as an opportunity. I am one of those people that sees positives, but I can back it up because of the +11 in the performance management. So in 2020, when we had this data and we compared it to 2018, performance management was -11. And it was the most significant decrease in staff feeling favorable of performance management. And so 2 years ago, we had the same kind of thing. Okay, what's going on? And we stopped instead of ignoring it and recognized there was opportunity for improvement and took time to research and talk with staff and create a new program and implement that. And you can see the positive effects of that. So this is, hopefully in 2 years, we'll have some really good movement in all of these areas, but we'll be able to, measurement is a really important piece just to see where we're at, even knowing it is a snapshot in time. But that does show the opportunity. So that's one thing for everybody to take away is, one, it is snapshot time, but two, no matter what, we still have opportunities to improve. Any questions on?
So this was done in August of 2020. So did you do?
This, the results you see here are from just a few months ago, August.
Okay, all right.
Right.
But the comparison. is to
I
August.
see, that's the comparison.
Yeah, that's
great. Okay, thank you.
So this is our third one. We'll be doing this every 2 years.
That's great.
And I have, I just didn't know if you have any questions on that, but I have a couple more slides.
Okay.
And this is just to kind of wrap up. So, all of the things, there's a whole lot of things we're doing, and this is a few that we talked about. So we have that engaging staff on project teams that Todd pointed out, really making sure that we're thoughtful about that and diversifying and including people throughout the district. The staff input on the conceptual building design, I also heard that being brought up, and it has, I think that there have been a lot more staff feeling comfortable speaking and adding notes to the boards that have made some really cool changes. Unfortunately, the architects have to continue to change, but it's only for the better. We have to remember that. The all staff meetings, we've gotten great feedback on that, so we will continue to do that and use that as a way to have check-ins with staff and see how they're doing and provide them with feedback and opportunities. The town hall style conversations I talked about. The employee advisory committee is another really great tool that we've been using and just checking in, like last month, checked in with them. How is feedback training going? How can we support staff after it's done so that it's still top of mind, and using that as a way to communicate. And then, then moving forward with the feedback training discussions and opportunities. And all of this is going back to the next slide. Why we do this, right? It's continuous improvement and organization. Any questions?
I think this is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, as you're pointing out, the big thing is that you want to give voice to everyone, and this is allowing that. That's excellent.
Yeah, and I just, we talk a lot about how important our employees are. I mean, they are our organization. The buildings are one thing, but it's the people that make this a beloved library system through their hard work and their passion. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that everybody has a voice and is engaged and is happy in their work, and it has to do with employee retention and all those good things. And yeah, this is such an odd time period to be measuring during, because I mean, I'm telling myself little stories about each one of those statistics from a standpoint of, well, customer focus. During that time period, you're not really dealing with people face to face, but you're giving people service that they really appreciate. So you feel very focused on the customer, I mean, so things may have been sky high in 2020.
Actually, 2020, very interesting. We did that survey about 2 weeks after we reopened, which was very,
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
yeah, which was very stressful for a lot of staff. So that's always a unique part about these engagements. They really are a snapshot in time. That customer service piece, we just rolled out the new method we're using. We definitely have improvements we can do in how we roll out, and that's what we're working on now, but it showed up very strongly in what that looked like.
Well, that's, yeah.
But it's, the nice thing for me is the things that we're identifying that we need to work on, that were actually the things that before the survey, we had identified in our strategic plan as areas we wanted to
Improve on.
so it's nice,
Yeah.
it's always nice when something lines up with what you wanted to do.
Right. Yeah, that's great work. Thank you so much.
I recall in the past, reports that we got for this actually had a breakdown, more analysis of each of those line items. To say, in their opinion, what does this mean? And what's the change mean? They always had a column that said, compared to your group. That was always like a weird thing because, you know.
Yeah, the benchmark, or, yeah, they kind of their benchmark,
Yeah, we kind of like just throw that out. So on their report here, did they have a breakdown as they did in the past? Their analysis of each one of these items, questions?
Yeah, there, we do have further detail in the, what are they, the industry benchmark here. I'm glad you did put that out, because yes, I did take that out because of the fact that, we're the only library,
Right.
and there are some municipalities, but truth be told, what another municipality thinks is, appropriate and successful
Yeah.
could be real low on our, on what we think, and so I think it's more important to look at us versus us than to compare yourself against anybody else.
So the report does have further analysis of each one of those areas. That they have
Yeah, because that's,
explained.
yeah,
And
because
their
they pull that
analysis
to
of
kind of
needs.
give us the overall.
So can we get all of that? In the past, we've always got the reports, and then we come back and have more questions. As to what's going on.
Yeah, each one of those bars comes from like 5 or 6 questions.
Right.
And so we have this scoring. They don't really have a lot of analysis, it's more of here's
Explanation.
a little better, trying to think of one of them like safety. Like, where did that come from? There are 4 questions and have people score, and that gives you a better sense of
Yeah.
where
They
that's
should
coming
see how they scored up their question. And then they do the-
from.
Yeah, and the other, yeah, we do have that data, so,
Yeah.
I'm here to support whatever, so Todd, just let me know. The piece that was really great this year is we had, I would say, the questions and some of the data coming in. Like I said, Talent Map did research and they said, here, we recommend these changes or these new questions to help improve the data you're getting.
Mhm.
But that also limited the ability to even compare yourself previously.
Sure.
So when we looked at that, it was like, oh, this is great, who knows what this compared to a couple years ago because it was new. So it was, some of the data that we did get was gonna be different than what you might have seen in the past.
Sure.
with that
Never had
respect.
NA.
Yeah, you'll see NA, and
So that's okay.
yeah.
So the question is,
Yeah.
are we gonna be getting the full reports?
Yeah,
As we have in the past,
I can send you the full report.
have it printed out, you get hard copies. And then in the past, it's been really helpful for the board to look at this and they come back and say, okay, what are we seeing here?
Mhm.
How do we fit in with this? Not just you, what are you doing? It's good to tell us, but you're an optimist, right?
I
So
try right
it's-
now.
That's
To a
nice
fault.
that- Which is good. I mean, you don't want a pessimist, but just, then we should actually, in the past, it's been really critical for the board to take a look at that in depth and then have a discussion on it. At the next board meeting, what's going on with a presentation by you, to say what's going on. What does this all mean? The big question, of course, in our minds is, how much of all of this is due to COVID? I mean, the deep, your feedback culture, getting feedback. I remember that was a big topic. That's always been in the library. We've instituted a lot of training all the way down the line, give positive feedback and team building. And it was going very well. Now, is this a reflection of COVID? That we can't do that, or haven't done it, just because of the circumstance? You know, things change when you have buildings that are not open.
I agree.
Obviously, after 2 years, this makes a huge change. And people look back at that saying, oh, this is terrible last 2 years. Well, it ain't your fault.
I will say for the board, I can give you the deeper information, but this is really about how we as a management work with our staff. It's not
Right.
really a board. So I'm happy to share it, but just realize there's not a lot that you can do policy wise.
No.
Yeah.
So this goes to how the organization is functioning.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of how our organization is functioning,
Sure.
both good and bad.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're totally disconnected. Policy has to come from, has to be driven by reality too. And the priority.
Okay. How about library news?
Okay, and I'm not ignoring you.
Yeah, big motion.
I don't.
Oh, no,
we
no.
don't.
This is more information.
Just being educated.
Yes, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
So I just got this. But it's something that so this is gonna be confusing, so bear with me for a second. We had a presentation back in April from the city of Bend about a program that they wanted to start as a tax exemption program. Trying to remember what it stands for. They keep calling it MUPTI, but basically, to recall, it was within the central district. They wanted the ability to, if somebody wanted to build an apartment complex, say, to be able to say that we are going to cap all taxes, and it's going to give a discount to the builder to encourage them to do that. And when they did that, if they do that, it's going to affect our taxing. So that's a reminder of that. They're now gotten to the point where they're implementing and they're getting ready for the first applications. The reality of this is they need 51% of the special districts to approve it. And you can get to 51% by the city and the school district. And then the rest of us kind of are at their mercy. What the city wanted to know was our boards, what we wanted to see. And it ranged. We met with other special districts like the Parks and Rec. We're very concerned, like, well, we want to know every single thing that's happening because that might involve us putting a park there. My concern was, would we be sitting here going through 5 different applications about somebody building an apartment complex, and how are we going to judge that? So just to let you know that what we're thinking of, what we kind of discussed with them was at least giving it a trial of, all right, you got the first 5 applicants are coming. Do you want to get that information so you can review somebody's proposal so that we can chime in on whether this is something that we agree with or not? So let me get this real first. So the first 5 applicants can attend a board meeting and present their case to us. And then they're asking if the taxing board district would like to opt out on receiving those presentations. They just like to know that. As I said, it didn't sound like all taxing districts were interested in this option. Following the first 5 applications, we would reconvene the taxing districts agency staff to discuss any desired program change or process. So what they want to know is, do you want to opt in to receive those presentations, or just see how it goes. And the reality is, if the school district agrees with it, it's going through. If we opt out of the presentation, we have options where we could submit a letter of support to the school district that offers our support of the decision-making. I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot at you at the, I just wanted to get you in mind because they may actually have applications come between now and the next board. They also have a weird time limit of about, I think, 4 or 5 weeks, so which makes it really weird for our board meeting. Clarify if we'd like to opt out of the first 5 and see how it goes, or if we want to opt out for all future. I would suggest if we opt out of anything, we do it for the limited time so we can see what happens.
And we will be considering these in chunks. In like groups of applications.
And actually the way it, and I'm sorry, I mean, they just threw this out. It sounds like they would actually, the developer would come here, each one would come and present to us.
What do you recommend?
Based on our workload right now, I recommend that we opt out, especially because.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was true.
It's a lot of effort for something that's we probably have zero control over.
Exactly.
Right, we're like 1%, right? Or some very small percentage.
Yeah. So some options we have, we could submit a letter of support to the city and the school district that offers our support for program decisions on the projects. So basically saying, we'll opt out, we'll defer to you, but I would recommend that we say we opt out, we'll defer to you, but we would like to reassess this after the first 5 and see how this is going.
Does it have to be a presentation to the full board?
That is what that's a good question. Well, it's going to be a board decision, so it should be, you could have a subcommittee, I guess, but you're still gonna have to come to a board decision.
I hate to pass up on information that may change, well, definitely is going to affect growth and density. Obviously. Is this strictly for, I forget what it's for, what area? Just the downtown.
But the majority, it's not just, but the majority of it's in that core tax deferred tax increment finance area, urban renewal district. They don't like to call it urban renewal district anymore. Right. It has a bad name. But, yes.
I would like, I think it's important for us to know what is happening there, whether we say yay or nay. It's like going to the urban renewal district.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter, right? But to say, well, we are not going to have the information to see what is planned or its potential, I think just sticking our head in the dirt. And then afterwards, you have no reason to say, well, this is good, this is bad.
Right.
We want to be proactive. If they are allowing, they would have the presenters, developers present to say, whoever on the board is interested in hearing for our information, that would be fine. I think we should take the time to figure out and know what's going on. Well, this is the center.
Well, you could do that because they will also have to present to the city. So if you're interested in it and you want to be involved in what's happening, you could always attend those meetings.
That might be better.
My concern right now is taking up our
Right.
our board meetings to do something like that.
Right. Yeah, so I inquire back and say, is there a method by which we can get the information firsthand without having presented our board? And if so, how do we opt in for that? Whoever is interested.
Write a summary of what they're
Yeah.
planning, and then if we wanted more information on projects, we could go.
Right.
And I think that's a good option, because that would allow us to start gauging your board interest. So that you're aware of those first 5 of
I'm more concerned how this is going to impact our ability to provide services.
And that goes back, that goes back to everything they described to us in April, when we met at the Redmond Library.
Yeah.
To go into what that looks like.
Yeah, I'd be interested in attending some, attending the presentations. I would be interested in them having a full presentation at our board meeting.
Okay, great. I can get more information.
And that way too, if there's two of us want to go, then that's not a board meeting.
Because I mean, this could be, I mean, depending on how this goes, I mean, this could be a big cycle of projects of proposals. And
I'll resend to you the PowerPoint they did for us in April, because there are limits on what it is, and how it affects us.
okay,
But I think that's enough feedback for me
okay.
for now. I will not schedule them to come to the next board meeting, but I'll get you more information.
Yeah, great.
Other news, just want to highlight that, as I mentioned to you, good, Emily's on. Just a debrief with you, the Crook County, sorry, I shouldn't have said, Crook County board decision. I just want to highlight Emily O'Neill did an excellent job of presenting on behalf of the Intellectual Freedom Committee for Oregon Library Association. Len was there to let them know what the possible impacts could be if they went that way. I probably never ever say this to you, but I will say it this time. If you get a chance to watch the recording of it, to see the public comments, it was about an hour's worth of people talking about how important their intellectual freedom rights were to them and what impact this was. It was very heartening to really see what the library needs to do. So that did come out as a 4-to-1 vote to not label them, move on. But just want to let you know that was something that we were involved in. Other news is I just want to highlight, this is the end of our calendar year, and this has been quite a year for us as a library and a staff. Between these building projects, where we are doing a lot of projects at once, as you all know, our staff working through a new wayfinder system, which is going to dramatically change and improve the way people access books in the county. The work we've been doing, especially around the feedback training, well, that was really involved. Those were 3 2-hour sessions with every single staff person. And then shutting down branches and moving into temporary spaces. We're probably at the if you bounced a quarter off us right now, it'd go pretty far. And just want to highlight that, to thank the board for your support for this entire year. It's been some very heavy decisions we've made over the last year. Our staff for going through all this, and just want to highlight where we are right now. And very exciting, like the engagement survey, we've got some great information to make improvements. It's already seeing it paying off. Even just getting information out and finding new ways to get different feedback from people. And people are, through the training, I'm already seeing they're much more positive about giving feedback, comfortable with doing it. And it's really important for us, especially when we talk about these building projects, where we're getting real-time feedback from people about, have you thought of this, have you thought of that, and starting some really engaging discussions, which is only going to make the projects better. So just want to highlight that this has been quite a year, and now we're ready for 2023.
All right.
And before we move on to foundation news, on the original agenda, there was one item
yes. Oh, yeah.
for us to schedule the next board work session.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Did I
it's
miss
not, no, it's not on this one. It was on.
Oh, the other one. Oh, I just swapped them out. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I didn't,
Sorry, yeah, sorry, I threw that on there after our discussion. So, it is just trying to look for our next board work session, and then Lori's been doing a great job of kind of getting her calendars, and it looks like we try to find a time when all 5 board members are here, and it looks like in February, and you're gonna be out of country. And then in March, I believe, Bunny, you're out.
Yes, I'll be out March and part of April.
I just wanted to get a sense of what that looks like. That, and also talk about some of the things that we might want to discuss at a work session, so we can start preparing and support you. Throwing that out there for your discussion of
well,
what we should aim for and what topics we would like to have.
I return on February 15th. So if people are around, depending on when Bunny takes off, maybe that last week in February.
Okay, in February,
Yeah,
because I was gonna say, I'm I'm having my knee replaced on the 18th of January, and I'm gonna be out of sync for a couple of weeks. At the end of February.
And I will be leaving March the 6th. So I'm available anytime before that.
Yeah, the end of February looks good for me.
That's the week of the 20th.
yes.
Yeah.
I can't do it February 28th. That's when we do that.
Those the 22nd is a Wednesday, which is kind of our,
Fine.
Yeah,
well, actually, I'd say 22nd, 23rd, 24th.
yeah. I could do any of those days.
I could too.
Okay,
22nd, 23rd, or 24th.
That works.
23rd, I can find fun to do that.
Okay. We are at the February board meeting is when we're going to bring back to you information on if you requested on East Bend, statistics and what's going on there. Not sure if you want that to be part of a work session, if you want that at the board meeting or hold that for a work session. Whatever works for you there. Other topic, which Anne brought up, which is one we need to have, is what are we going to call the new library? As you know, I put a placeholder on that working title, but I was kind of waiting for the G-SPEN discussion to see if that affected anything. So that's a topic of discussion. And any other?
well, selfishly, I would like, if we could discuss the East Bend question in the work session, that would be great. I'm gonna try to come to the meeting. But I'm gonna be in New Zealand, so I don't know how that will work. I mean, you know, like I'm gonna do my best to call in. I think I'm gonna be in a place where I could do that. But it would be great to have that all 5 of us face to face.
I like the idea of the work session too.
Because my assumption is, in our discussion, probably other requests for information will pop up, and so I think that does fit well for a work session.
Okay,
Okay. I will look for those dates. I'll aim for the 22nd right now. I will, and would you like to? I can see if Marble Helphand's available, if you'd like
Yeah,
that. So I'll use that flexibility in the dates to see if that works for her.
So you said the 22nd?
yeah.
Oh, there we go. Calendar wouldn't let me look at 9 a.m. Okay, great. Thank you for catching that, Ann. That was.
Sure.
Thought I was, like, I don't see that, I don't see.
Well, Todd and I had talked about that earlier, and so I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
see it
that's-
on this one, and I thought, I know Todd put that on there, so.
Yeah, no, that's,
So then I went back to that. and
I'm
saw it.
glad you remember that.
Yes.
Because it's way easier to do it sitting together. Sure. Okay, so for my foundation news update, we had the Novel Idea Unveiled event earlier this month, and it was fantastic. It was great to be back in person, and crowds of enthusiastic and cold people crowded the crowded the downstairs waiting to get in. But no, I mean, it was a good, healthy crowd, and people were super enthusiastic, and I think everybody was talking about how nice it was to have it in person again. So in case you did not hear, this year's Novel Idea is going to be a celebration of its 20th, the program's 20th year. And it's the largest community read program in Oregon, and it has more than 15,000 people participating last year. And they picked 4 books. They're going to bring back 4 authors who have presented before, but all of these authors either have new books coming out or their books have come out. So it's David James Duncan, Maria Amparo Escandon, Peter Heller, and Anne Griffin. And Anne Griffin is the Irish author who was supposed to present in 2020 and didn't get the chance because she couldn't get here.
And she wanted to come.
And she wanted to come, so she's very excited, and they had a great video with each of the authors commenting on how much they had enjoyed their time here originally and how excited they were to come back. And so we've got 4 great books to read, and I think it's going to be a really wonderful celebration of a beloved community program.
I think it worked out so great that 2 of the authors are from the earliest portion of the Novel Idea, and then Heller's kind of in the middle, and then Griffin's more towards the end. I thought that was really a good balance.
Yeah, for people who have maybe come here more recently, they haven't had the chance to read the earlier ones, and I think it's been great. Also excited to be back.
One little caveat, so David James Duncan was our first author. And he has a book coming out in the summer of 2023 called Sun House, but we couldn't get it in time for a novel idea. It's taken him 17 years to write. It's an epic. So we're using The Brothers Case. So we had selected The River Why the first go around. So The Brothers K was his 3rd book and his favorite book that he'd written until the most recent one. So that's when we're going to encourage people to read. But all the other 3 have new books out, several.
And as he pointed out, the themes in the Brothers K are as relevant today as when the book was written. So that's kind of interesting.
They really are. I'm rereading it.
I'm going to reread it. I loved that book.
You want to listen to it, it's on the Hoopla app, so you don't have to wait for it.
Well, I know, but it would take like a.
It's
I was gonna
47
say.
hours.
It's like, my God, it's fun 27 hours. So,
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
an hour and 4.
Yeah, that is one long book, but it is a great one. All right, so that's the big news from the foundation. So. Meeting review, critical communication. Critical communication.
I did not track any critical communication other than I will get back to the city of Bend on.
Yeah.
Our desires.
Okay. Self-review of the meeting. Bunny, do you want to start?
Sure. I thought it was an excellent meeting. I couldn't always hear everything, but I got most everything, and I felt like I feel good about progressing forward. We'll be having this next Friday, the open house at Sisters. I'll be going, and I'm anxious to see how that goes. But it was a good meeting.
Okay, thank you. Ray?
Yeah. Good meeting. Thanks, Greg. Yes, update. Thanks for all the budget balancing and movement and things like that. So, and thanks to Sarah. Love and optimist. To have something like that. Thank you very much. So good meeting, all of that.
Yeah.
Good meeting. Just want to echo again, Greg, I really appreciate your presentations. I know you give us all the information in the packet, but to just hear you go through it step by step and then just kind of fill in those little pieces. For example, changing the schedule based on the need to give staff more time to be prepared. So it's always good to just kind of hear you go through that. And also thanks to Sarah in her presentation. We do have a dynamic organization, but it's because of the staff. And so it's always good to hear their input on their participation in the organization.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Ann just said. One of the things I wanted to say in your report, Greg, I was delighted to see how the architects and the construction and you're all balancing everything out, making sure that the branches are getting exactly what they need. I mean, yes, the fact that Redmond's getting a brand new library and we're going to have a brand new central library, those are big deals, but branches are just as important. So I'm so glad to see that you guys are all working to make sure that is equal there,
Yeah.
and that the branches are getting what they need. And then the other thing I'm excited about is the fact that the children's section, the materials are going to be able to be fluid through the county, because that's just going to make the children's section so much more dynamic. Every time the kids come in, there could be something new there. So I'm
Right.
very excited about that. Thank you. And I really appreciated Sarah's report as well.
Right, I appreciate, I just echo what everybody else said. Your reports are detailed and really explain the why behind what is happening, and it really makes me confident that things are being looked at and managed very, very carefully. And I particularly want to commend everybody for slowing down on the design of the Stevens Ranch branch, because we have the opportunity to really make big improvements now without big costs when it comes to constructions. And so now is the time to take the time and get it right. And it's really heartening to know that everybody is focused on doing that, and big improvements are coming as a result. So I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah, I thought it was a great meeting, and I enjoyed hearing about that. The employee engagement survey is a really important thing for the board to pay attention to, and our employees are the key thing that make this district what it is. So making sure that we're providing great work conditions for everybody, and the communication is working. Thank you. I think that's about, Todd.
I just want to highlight that, everything that happens here happens behind the scenes with Lori still.
Yes.
And so, thank you.
Yeah.
And what fun to have a meeting where I get to sit and look at Rudolph bags.
This did.
So cute.
I'm looking at those and I'm bummed that I didn't get one.
Got one for you.
Oh,
Bring it to sisters on Friday.
And I hope
thank you.
I hope your wrist gets better. I mean, I hope this heals really super quickly.
Well, I can't drive until it has a cast, so Monday, hopefully.
All right, well, I hope gets better quickly.
Well, Mark can go pick up your Rudolph.
Okay, well, with that, I will adjourn. Thank you.